Hey everybody, I'm Abby, this is Sunny D Writes. Today, we're talking about the first draft and everything that goes into it. If you're a writer, you know what a first draft is. If you've written anything, you probably know what a first draft is. Think of a first draft like the baseline of your work. In essence, like the name says, your first draft is the first version of the story that you write. But a lot of the times, us writers can get pretty down on ourselves because the first draft isn't necessarily good. But the goal for the first draft isn't to be good. So the first draft usually has a couple goals associated with it though, and those are going to be what I'm talking about in this video. Before I get too far into this, I'm going to emphasize that your first draft does not need to be and should not be perfect. Think of it like a building block for the future stages of your story. So without further ado, let's launch into it. Goal number 1. Figure out the story. If you're a plotter, this is a chance to experiment with the plot that you've written for your story. This includes your outline, any character development, and any major events. For plotters, the first draft gives you the opportunity to figure out what works in your outline and what doesn't, and it lets you change it so that you can make your story better for future drafts. For those of you who don't plot, this is the stage where you're figuring out what your story is, in every single way. You start off with an idea, you figure out what you like about it, you figure out what you don't, and as you go, you kind of incorporate all those ideas into your story. First drafts can be especially tough for people who don't plot their stories, because this means that you're figuring out everything about your story as you go. For those who do, and for those who don't plot alike, the first draft is your chance to figure out your initial style. The first draft takes you through the basics of your story, and while your main goal isn't perfection, it sets up the stage for you to get there. The goal of the first draft isn't perfection, but the first draft is absolutely going to set the stage for you to take the steps to get there. Goal number 2. Setting your story's priorities. What matters to your story and why? This can be plots and subplots, character relationships, any sort of dynamics, the way that the world changes, the way that your story progresses, anything like that. Any and all of these can be considered story priorities because you can put your focus on any one of them when you're writing. Oftentimes during the first draft, we don't know exactly what we want our story to focus on. So this is the chance for us to figure that out and kind of untangle everything that we're working with. The reality is that when you're writing, if you try to focus on too many things, then your story can come off as, just like I said, tangled. So as you're writing, pay attention to your priorities. Think about what matters to you the most and what doesn't, and this is going to help you as you go through and edit your story. It can also help you remove unnecessary complications, like maybe you don't need a subplot, or maybe one character relationship is too complex for the story that you're writing. So, in essence, the first draft is when you figure out what you want your story to be. Step 3. Build a foundation for editing. There's a very popular and a very true phrase that you can't edit a blank page. This means that you can't improve what you don't have. It's easy for us to look on our first drafts and think that they're terrible or that they're badly put together, but the reality is that they were just the first draft. Everybody has to start from somewhere, and now that you know what you want in your story, you can go ahead and realize it in your later drafts. Step 4. Building writer experience. Now that you've finished your first draft, you need to realize that you just wrote an entire book, and that is not something that most people can say. It's important that you take a second and feel that kind of pride, because not only is this a huge commitment that you've just fulfilled, but this is a huge accomplishment that most people are never going to make in their lives. And whether you're a brand new writer or an experienced one, this is another manuscript under your belt. This is more experience that you have as a writer. For the more experienced writers, remember that this is always a learning experience. Whether you've written 1 or 100 manuscripts in the past, there's always something different about your stories. Maybe in this one you found out a new writing tense or a point of view that you really like. Or maybe you found a new way to format your story. Or maybe you found a new way to describe things. No matter what, as you're writing and when you finish writing your first draft, you want to look back and think about what you learned from this project. All in all, writing a first draft and reading it over when you're done isn't the horrible experience that everybody chalks it up to be. There are a lot of goals that you can fulfill and a lot of things that you can work towards as you go through and edit and improve your story. And that's about all that I have for you today. If you have any comments or any follow-up questions, be sure to leave them below or on my blog over at Sunny D Writes. And until next time, happy writing!